City Hall should throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the current crime surge. More camera coverage, he believes, could be one answer.
Look, we're down 400 cops. So, in a sense, every new camera sort of helps cover that gap.
Shook has put forward an initiative that would require owners of new buildings to do what many, you would think, had already planned: install cameras on their properties.
Multifamily residential, as well as, say, hotels, office buildings, multi-use buildings above a certain size.
The key, Shook believes, is to get as many cameras, police and otherwise, tied into the VIC, or Video Integration Center.
But if you're tied into the VIC, then the police are seeing information real time. It is definitely noticeably superior. We also see statistics showing that areas that are saturated with cameras tend to see crime diminishing.
One more aspect in how cameras can be helpful is the final step for police officers. Once they lock somebody up, you've got to get a conviction. And oftentimes, it's that camera footage that can help the prosecutor. From Zone 2 in Buckhead, I'm Morse Diggs, Fox 5 News.
Well, it is based
training and whatnot. We know that these reforms have been happening in police movements, and we still are getting the outcomes that we're getting.
Rob DiRienzo, Fox 5 News.
A jury is now in place in the fraud. They heard that a maid walked into the hotel room and she saw a bunch of guns laid out, and then they found a white SUV down here on the road. It was a very suspicious vehicle.
Officials seized more than a dozen guns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. The Associated Press reports some of the confiscated weapons included several rifles. So far, FBI agents say they have no reason to believe this was connected to terrorism or a threat directed at the All-Star game itself.
Back here in Georgia, police in Hiram arrested a man after they say he opened fire on people at a local bar and then rammed his truck into the building. It happened Saturday.
Less than 1%. So that's incredible information, and we need to use that data, use that science as we make these decisions that have long-term impacts on our children.
According to Johns Hopkins University, COVID cases in the U.S. rose by almost 50% over the last week. COVID deaths appear ready to rise as well. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox 5 News Edge at 11.
Tonight. It started as a small demonstration a few days ago after the country's former president was imprisoned for contempt of court. The protest quickly spread and grew violent, leading to nearly a dozen deaths and about 500 arrests. The South African National Defense Force has been deployed to help police restore order. The White House says it supports demonstrations happening in Cuba. That's where people are taking a rare stand against communist leadership over quality of life issues. Fox's Madeline Rivera has details.
As Cubans call for freedom and change, people around the world from Spain to Miami are showing their support.
It's important that we recognize what is happening in Cuba right now at this very moment. A spontaneous uprising that has never happened in the last 60 years.
Thousands are protesting against the country's communist regime as a slew of problems plague the island. The country's economic crisis has gotten worse. The coronavirus pandemic has led to a drop in tourism revenue. Severe blackouts and food shortages are also rampant.
One of these leaders said, look, they've taken away everything from us, including our fear. Now, once the Cuban people lose that fear of the government, then I believe it's the beginning of the end.
On Monday, President Biden emphasized U.S. support of the Cuban people, urging the country's leaders to listen to them.
The Cuban people demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime.
The Cuban government blames the U.S. in part for the worsening situation, pointing to the sanctions against the country. But the White House says they are not at fault.
And the United States regularly authorizes the export of agricultural products, medicine, medical equipment, and humanitarian goods to Cuba. There's every indication that yesterday's protests were reactions of the people in Cuba to exhaustion of the governance of the leaders in the state.
The White House says while
Do
The investigation into the death of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse is ramping up. Police in the nation confirming they have already arrested more than 28 foreign mercenaries who they believe organized the assassination of Moïse. Interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph is hopeful everyone involved will be brought to justice.
The investigation is our main concern because a president cannot die under these conditions, which we know he has been tortured, humiliated in a tragic way.
Meanwhile, the White House has turned down calls from Haitian officials to send troops to assist in stabilizing the nation following Moïse's death. On Monday, the Biden team was briefed on the situation and vowed to protect the people of Haiti and the interests of the embattled nation.
The safety and security of the people of Haiti is of great interest to the president and to the administration. This is just the beginning of our conversations, and we will remain in close touch with law enforcement, with individuals in Haiti, with a range of leaders in Haiti about how we can assist and provide assistance moving forward.
Over the weekend, Haitian Americans in South Florida gathered for a memorial ceremony for the late Haitian president. Florida is home to the largest percentage of Haitian Americans in the United States.
Park officials believe it was late last Thursday night. Volunteers showed up here bright and early Friday morning to do some repair work on some fencing. They, along with park rangers, discovered the damage.
We're trying to learn lessons from our past, and the monuments that you find in parks like this, when people deface them, that's hurting the whole country.
Throughout Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield, there are markers and monuments telling stories of the historic Battle of Kennesaw Mountain in 1864. Visitors often bring small American flags and place them throughout the park. Late last week, park officials say vandals snatched some of those flags and set them on fire at various sites, including here at the gravesite of the unknown soldier.
To see something like this, yes, it breaks your heart.
Park rangers found large burn marks on the Illinois Monument at Cheatham Hill, the site where thousands were killed or wounded, both Confederate and Union soldiers.
There was also etched in with something sharp, a obscene symbol.
While some visitors don't understand it, others say it was only a matter of time.
No, I think it's the whole movement. I don't think it's just particularly, hey, only this park. No, I think it's happening in a lot of places.
I honestly don't see why it's happening here, because here it seems like you can see a lot of both sides of the Union and Confederate side. It shows a lot of history of both sides of the argument.
National Park Service personnel spent all weekend cleaning and trying to repair the damage.
We're lucky this time we were able to repair it, but a lot of times it's not, and that stuff can remain forever.
Park rangers have been leaving this gate open during the summer months just to make sure nobody gets stuck inside. But after this vandalism, these gates are locked up tight at 8 p.m. Now, a tip line.
John the Revelator wrote the book of the seven seal. John was on the island of Patmos. He heard a voice like a trumpet blowing. Write down everything what you see and hear. Send it out to the rest of the world. And tell me who's that writing. John the Revelator. Tell me who's that writing. John the Revelator. Now tell me who's that writing. John the Revelator wrote the book of the seven seals.